Helldivers fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update. The May 6 update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30, will not be moving forward. We're still learning what is best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. Thanks again for your continued support of Helldivers 2, and we'll keep you updated on future plans. Well, Sony said some pretty words. Some good old-fashioned PR talk that actually only dealt with half of the entire situation that arose from this. The rest, well, it in fact became worse. I'm sure everybody watching this, or most people in the PC gaming space, people who prefer to play on the PlayStation, or anybody who is on social media and follows different gaming news outlets or personalities, they've heard of this, and they remember that attempt by Sony Interactive Entertainment to re-implement the PlayStation Network account requirement on Helldivers 2. But just in case, a quick summary before I move further and past Helldivers 2 and into Sony's new bizarre and baffling decision involving PC gaming as a whole, which I might add is the second largest gaming user base out there. This is behind only mobile devices, but it's the largest of the dedicated, mostly immobile hardware. You're looking, it's closer to dedicated hardware such as an Xbox or a PlayStation. And then it's even larger if you decide to include, highly popular handheld gaming PCs such as the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally or MSI's weird attempt with their Claw. PlayStation Network account linking was disabled almost immediately after Helldivers 2 launch, and that's important for a lot of reasons, particularly reasons involving 177 different countries that Steam provides service to. Without Sony's actual restrictions on their end, members of these 177 different countries were able to purchase Helldivers 2. They were never greeted immediately by you are required to have a PlayStation Network account. They were never required to link it. There was just simply, on PC, a skip button you can click and skip. The game functioned completely as normally. You were able to join games, you were able to play, albeit if you were able to get through the different queues, disconnects, normal launch woes of live service games. But this went on. This went on for a long time. Only one mention that it would be re-implemented later was buried rather quickly in Arrowhead Game Studios' Discord. They said that this was a temporary fix, and that was it. It was about 3 sentences long, and it was buried immediately. So to everyone on the surface, it looked like this was an optional account to have. The game functioned without it. Conflicting information on Sony's various websites, the EULA for the game not mentioning a PlayStation Network account being required, the PC FAQ on Sony's website saying that PlayStation Network accounts are completely optional, which was then updated the next day to saying they're mandatory for some games. A little sneaky fix there, but the Wayback Machine doesn't forget. However, 3 months later, 4 paid and premium battle passes later, this is 10 weeks after Steam lets you return digital games. You have a 2-week window. Numerous hours after the 2-hour playtime window, Sony decided to re-implement it. This was a surprise to everyone on PC. Something they were allowed to skip was being required again. Those markers on the Steam page, the conflicting information confused everybody, and it just didn't add up. These 177 regions on the screen right now were now locked out of playing the game that Sony willingly sold to them. Sony had it set up so they could buy the game, never intended to let them actually play it, but let them play it for 3 months. Sony knows how to restrict their games on Steam. They did it with the Japanese version. The Japanese version is different than the global version, is only available in Japan. The global version is available globally and not in Japan. Those 2 versions are restricted to either everywhere except for Japan or Japan and not everywhere else. So they were aware of how to do this, but they never implemented this for countries where they had no intent of actually supporting with PlayStation Network access. Now, after a weekend of review bombing, numerous refund requests at the advice of the community manager at Arrowhead, who Sony has recently strong armed the developer to fire, Sony relented and dropped that PSN requirement. You can see here, SteamDB is fantastic. You can see markers put into place when things happen. Friday, May 3rd, account linking shenanigans. This is when the reviews start happening. Once they announce that they are reverting it, people start flipping their reviews. But not so fast. That was it. The decision to reverse restricting the game remains in place to this day. A week later, in fact, more restrictions on Helldivers 2 have been placed by Sony. It's no longer eligible for family sharing on Steam's platform. The community declared victory, reversed the review scores, and while others saw what had actually happened, Sony hadn't really changed anything. A PSN account was still a requirement for any new potential buyer, consumer, user, player. You just didn't have to link the account. You just couldn't buy the game or play it from the 5th on unless you could make a PSN account, meaning that if you're in one of 69 countries, even then, some countries only let you make accounts from dedicated console hardware. Restricting this even further, the community had been successfully bamboozled by the honeyed words of corporate PR speak. However, now that we've recovered all of that, let's get back to Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, one of the best looking and most well received games in the past decade from Sucker Punch Productions. A game put together so well, in fact, that 2 developers from Sucker Punch Productions were given an honorary position to be ambassadors for boosting tourism in the real-life Japanese island of Tsushima. The game, by all accounts, was a masterpiece. It was a giant success. Director's Cut saw the game finally getting a PC release and an upgrade for the PlayStation 5. With it was coming the new PlayStation PC overlay, allowing you to communicate with other PSN friends, earn trophies for your PSN account. All of this with cross-save functionality with the PS5 version of the Director's Cut if you for some reason bought the Director's Cut twice for both systems. This also included crossplay between Director's Cut versions for all systems, that being PlayStation consoles that it's on and the PC. Sucker Punch Productions themselves even went so far as to inform people by making an announcement on Twitter in response to concerned users during the Helldivers 2 fiasco that the PSN account requirement and their game, that this was in direct response to a question and that they would not be required. A PSN account is only required for Legends Online multiplayer mode and to use PlayStation Overlay. It's not required to play the single-player game. So, by all accounts, people assumed that a PlayStation Network account would be required. However, that's only to access the overlay or the multiplayer features. Single player, the primary draw of this game, would be spared. So seemingly, if you weren't able to make a PSN account, you could still play the single player game. You could still play that still, which is the draw of the title to begin with. A carefully handcrafted and beautiful open world game. One with great action combat. Beautiful. It is fantastic. One of the last games I played on PS4. Well, once again, this seemed to be more PR speak in the end. The day following the announcement from PlayStation on X about the PSN account linking not being required for Helldivers 2 on Steam, restrictions for Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut seemingly were put into place. Users began getting emails from marketplaces such as Green Man Gaming or Steam saying that their purchase was being canceled and refunds were being issued if they were necessary. Why would they be necessary? Well, Sony decided to gimp their PC presence once again. This time, though, trying not to look like abominable fraudsters in the end, at least. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut was, now restricted in 177 countries, with a few more also not having prices available to them. So, no PSN account was required to be linked to play the single-player portion of the game, but having access to official PSN account support was still required by Sony to even purchase the game and play the portion of the game where you did not need to have a PlayStation Network account. At this point, this is now a quarter measure on Sony's part in making the game available to people who want to give them more money across the globe. Going even further, if you're in a country where PSN accounts are supported, but you're in the subset playing on a Steam Deck or the most popular PC handheld on the market, due to its aggressively low price point, the openness of Linux, and how much work Valve put into making it a desirable handheld, you can't play that multiplayer portion either. Multiplayer requires the PlayStation PC overlay. It doesn't just require the account linking. The overlay is only supported on Windows. The tie-in of the overlay being required to play multiplayer is weird to say the least, but also points to the fact that Sony isn't attempting to target that growing Linux crowd either, which is still a very, very small subset. So people who do want to play it on Linux systems or the Steam Deck, or they'll just need to be mindful that the product does not work 100% and is missing those features. But to Sony's credit, at least the game's not listed as supported on Steam Deck, it's listed as unsupported unknown. But with that all in mind, with how it will work on Linux systems or the Steam Deck, without having access to the PlayStation PC overlay or access to PlayStation Network account linking, so no multiplayer, so no actual need for a PlayStation Network account, why is the game not available worldwide? Why does this restriction still only apply to the 69 countries with PSN support in the first place? Why is that restriction in place? The game seemingly runs fine without linking and without the overlay, thus without a PSN account. Skipping over the Legends multiplayer, sure, but it still works as the base single-player game. The game could be easily split up and sold at a different price point for people without access to that. $59.99, $64.99, whatever. Give them a slight discount for what was originally an external mode and downloadable content not being available in their region anyways. But still benefit from selling the game in 177 more countries to a much larger potential region, and still benefit from selling that game. There's a much larger audience. There's a lot more money to be made. Instead, you're just purposefully gimping yourself, and why? When you take a look at it, it's just ridiculous. The largest region outside of China and Russia, or anything that's embargoed by the US government where products cannot be sold, is the Philippines. It's an Asian country. 115.6 million population, at least from 2022. Here are some first world countries that show that PlayStation Network does support. Canada, 31.02 million. Australia, 19.27 million. You're looking at 4 times or 6 times. It's ridiculous. Why? Why not sell it there? Now, I get it. It's you can't even see the chart. There you go. But why not sell it to there? Why not sell the game to consumers in the Philippines? You're not going to reach the entire audience of 115.6 million. You're going to reach a large subset, though. They can't buy your console. They can't play games in the console. To get this game, they would need to be on PC. Other publishers have figured it out. Their accounts are available in these other regions. Why aren't Sony providing any sort of support for these regions? Their profit margins too low? Are they not willing to pay some in taxes? Who knows? But Sony is gimping themselves trying to enter this PC marketplace at such a ridiculous level and for such odd reasons. I realized I had that graph hidden behind my camera for a little bit and then opened up some other window trying to close it, but whatever. You got to see the graph in the end. You got to see it compared to Canada and to Australia, countries where Sony supports the PlayStation Network and will sell the game. Countries which are going to have overall probably actually less consumers, less people, less gamers who want to buy the game on PC and play it than those in the Philippines, because they could just play it on their PlayStation. They have that support. But here we are. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, much like Helldivers 2, is not available to a majority of the world. Despite confirmation from Sony at one point on lifting linking requirements and Sucker Punch Productions themselves stating it's not required for single player, PSN accounts are still, in fact, actually required. Or, at least living in a country Sony has deemed worthy of selling products to, where the profit margins are high enough for them to support you. This is rather ludicrous as well. Just taking a slice of one of those non-supported regions, the Philippines, they're 1/3 the size of that of the United States. Like I said, 4 times out of Canada, 3 times out of Canada, 4 times of Australia, larger than every other country supported by Sony, but it's not available to them. This just seems like sabotage at this point. Now, I don't know what their end game is. I do fully think that Sony, in the end, is going to look at these weird, poor sales on Steam and either dip out of PC gaming as a whole when these wounds are completely self-inflicted, or they're going to view it as, we need our own marketplace. We need you to come to our marketplace to play these games, and we're going to charge you a monthly fee to be able to play these games on our marketplace online. Now, we've already seen that happen. We've seen what happened to Microsoft doing that. Didn't work out well. Microsoft has a whole bunch of other shit issues going on right now, which I'll talk about at some further point. Closing Tango Gameworks, despite how they were performing fiscally, seems kind of stupid, rather than giving them some actual direction. But this is more about this weird anti-consumer facing strategy, that anti-money earning strategy that Sony has decided to go with on the PC platform. It makes no sense to me. The game works without PlayStation overlay, without linking a PlayStation account, without the multiplayer on Linux and the Steam Deck. It apparently runs great on the Steam Deck, from everything I've heard from tech sources. And that's without that PlayStation Network account linking or the overlay or anything. Sell the game in those other countries for a discount. Sell it as... I don't know. I don't know what Sony's doing. I don't know what all of these companies are doing anymore. We're in this point where every small bit of growth and value needs to be squeezed out of every last little part and bit of everything. Microsoft is closing studios because they're spreading themselves too thin. Sony is literally putting up a wall to stop money from coming to them. Square Enix is firing people, closing studios, canceling projects, eating massive losses. Nintendo's doing whatever the hell they want and still outperforming everybody, despite the fact that they're selling 30-year-old emulated games on their platform where the emulator runs worse than one you can fucking download on your iPhone. We're coming up to a crash at this point. Sony refuses to make money. Their profit margins were really, really thin compared to everyone else. Microsoft's were the largest, Nintendo second, and that's with, all the acquisitions Microsoft's doing and their closures, of course. Sony had plenty of closures earlier in the year and last year as well. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'm just watching my hobby die. I'm watching a game I was looking forward to purchasing the director's cut on just be something I don't want to deal with anymore, because of some ludicrous requirement that's clearly there for the shareholders to see the monthly active user count.